Dr. Burns, welcome to the Shift Podcast.
Thank you for the invitation.
I'm very excited to chat with you. I think you might be my first university president that I'm speaking
Oh,
with. I think you might be my first. Yes.
that's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah. As we started, I was like, how am I going to introduce her? And I was like, she's the first university president I'm actually going to be speaking with. That's it. That's right there. So
That works for me.
before we go into the nuances of higher education and the awesome things that you guys are doing at your institution, talk to me a little bit about what does it take to become a president of an institution like that?
It has been a journey, and a journey that has been one I never anticipated taking, quite honestly. So, a quick personal bit of information about me before I tell you about my professional journey. I'm a first generation college graduate. My father had some college, no degree, and my mother didn't go to college. And so, to imagine one day that I would be a university president was just never in my wildest dreams. But I've been really fortunate along my journey to have incredible mentors, to have incredible supporters and advocates that have led me to this place today. So I am a person who thought they were going to be a clinical psychologist, quite honestly, and knew that I wanted to study psychology. And so I did at the undergraduate and master's level. And it was during my master's actually that I learned that I really enjoyed teaching and doing research. And so I shifted my plans just a little bit to instead of study clinical psychology, did a degree in personality and social psychology, and I have emphasis in development and some background in gender studies, and really had incredible advisors and mentors during graduate school who showed me what it would be like to have an academic life. And so I knew that I wanted to go to a place where I could get to know my students, where I could support their educational journeys because people had supported mine. And so I went from a PhD program with an R1 institution to teach at a small liberal arts college in Iowa, and to really get to know my students. And I thought I'd be a faculty member my entire career, quite honestly, because I love to teach and I love doing research and I love supporting students' journey. And after I'd been a faculty member for a little while, the provost at the institution I was at encouraged me to start mentoring faculty. And so I started mentoring faculty, had the opportunity to apply for an administrative position at that institution and and I accepted the position with the understanding that I would continue to teach and do research because those things were important to me. And it felt important not only for my students, but important for my faculty colleagues as well. And so I stayed kind of that faculty route to academic affairs. And from that kind of mid-level dean position, I moved into a chief academic officer, vice president for academic affairs position at another institution in Iowa, at a small Catholic university in Dubuque, Iowa. And really, again, had great mentors, colleagues, and supporters who helped me see something in myself that I hadn't necessarily seen. And so when the opportunity came forward, my president at that institution shared a job prospectus for the then College of Mount St. Vincent. And he said, I'm not trying to get rid of you, but I see this institution and I know that the institutional mission and values so very much align with who you are and what you believe. I think you should apply for the position. And I'm a Midwesterner born and raised. And by the way, that school is in New York. And so I said to my husband, you know what, this is really interesting. I don't think it'll go anywhere, but I'm going to throw my name in the hat. And a pandemic started right after I applied for the position. And we can unpack that, what that was like to lead an institution and also apply for a presidency during that. But in the process of the interview, I fell in love with this place that I'm so blessed to be at. And that led me ultimately to now the University of Mount St. Vincent. And so I have a very traditional kind of career path in higher education. And I feel like there are fewer presidents today who have that kind of traditional career path. Many are coming from different angles, but I think it serves me well. And it also serves me well that I have the experience of one, having incredible mentors, knowing the value of incredible mentors, and two, having been a student who didn't know what to do navigating higher education, to be able to be a president at an institution where more than half of our students are first generation, to say, I know what it means to not know how do you talk to somebody in a particular office, or how do you make decisions about career, and what the implications of those decisions are. I think it served me well. And although I would not say I understand every single student's journey because we each have our own, I think it
Mm-hmm.
has been a benefit to the institution as well.
Hmm. And so tell me a little bit more about University of Mount St. Vincent. Tell me a little bit more about, you briefly mentioned the kind of profile of students, but can we go deeper into that? So really kind of set the context of, who the institution serves, and kind of what kind of, profiles you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So the University of Mount St. Vincent was founded more than 175 years ago by the Sisters of Charity of New York. And we were actually first founded by the sisters as an academy for girls. And over the course of their kind of really committing to higher education, committing to education for girls, they moved from an academy for girls very quickly to a college for women, and then went coeducational in the 70s and continued to add programs at the undergraduate level, added professional programs, added graduate programs. And the sisters, by their founding, really committed to evolving the institution with the signs of the times. And when they first were founding the institution, they knew that girls and women were not being served in the market of education. So they wanted to provide access to education for women. And then the University of Mount St. Vincent was the first institution of higher learning for women in the state of New York. And so very progressive at the time to become an institution that, again, asked the question, what are the times calling for? What is needed? So our history actually is that we served a lot of immigrant families. And how those immigrant families have shifted over the course of that 175 years is really fascinating. It was Irish immigrant families when they were first founded. Today, we still serve a lot of immigrant families from all over, really, quite honestly, all over. We offer a broad array of programs. We're very much committed to the traditional liberal arts and sciences, where many institutions, we can talk about this later too, many institutions are moving away from that commitment. We still have a very firm commitment in the value of what those kinds of programs and kind of education offer. But we also have very successful professional programs. For example, one of our largest undergraduate majors is nursing. And we have a very strong school of business, and we have a school of education. And so we've added additional programs and established strength in those programs. We have the undergraduate program here on our Riverdale campus serves in a round number, about 1,400 traditional undergraduate students. And then we have about another here on our Riverdale campus, I would say, again, round numbers, about 400 graduate students that are either in nursing or in education or business, or we're now 3 years into a physician's assistant program, our first registered physician's assistant program in the Bronx. We also have fully online graduate programs that serve students in education and business. And we have a beautiful relationship with an Orthodox Jewish seminary in Brooklyn, where we educate women at the undergraduate and graduate level in programs at the undergraduate level in psychology and accounting and business. We also educate at the graduate level in education in a culturally sensitive way. Our total headcount with all of these different combinations of students, plus I should mention we also have accelerated nursing programs, not only on our campus, but in some other locations in the city as well. Our total headcount is about 3,800 students. So we're I'm going to say small, mid-sized institution that is absolutely committed to excellence in education, committed to, in our mission statement, we talk about authentic inclusivity, our commitment to human dignity, our common humanity, and our obligations to each other. We are a Hispanic serving institution. We are a minority serving institution. Here on our Riverdale campus, we're a majority minority institution. We have more than half of our students are first generation. We have more than half of our students are Pell eligible. So there's a broad economic diversity that we serve, in addition to diversity in background, diversity in race, ethnicity, religion, and so forth. And so I like to think of the University of Mount St. Vincent as the place where those who have not had the opportunity to be seen, we see them. And we ask the question of, what are your passions? What are your journeys? What are your dreams? how can we walk with you in those moments? And how can we make sure that if those dreams change, that we're ready to be partners with you to help pivot to what path forward you see from there as well. And that's true at the undergraduate level. It's true at the graduate level. And this fall, we just launched an associate degree program as well under the name Seton College at the University of Mount St. Vincent for students who have high financial need and high need for academic support as well. And it's a really beautiful program that gives students who wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to go to college or might get lost in other college situations to have an excellent academic experience as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's a very admirable thing to do. My audience very well knows my feelings about higher education, how inaccessible it is for a lot of students.
So many.
So
Yeah.
many. And to your point, students that don't even see it as an option for themselves,
Right, right. And
you
it's
know?
tragic. It's absolutely tragic.
Absolutely.
So even though my parents didn't complete college, my mother didn't go to college, they very much wanted, I'm one of four girls. They very much wanted us to commit to education, but they didn't really know what that meant. And each one of my sisters and I took kind of a slightly different path with education. And my parents were like, okay, great. Now you need to find somebody to help you try to get access to that. And we're here to support you. We're here to encourage you. We're here to be cheerleaders for you, but we don't know how to navigate financial aid. We don't know
Mm.
how to tell you what career office to go to. We don't know like what classes you should take or what you should study. And those kind of barriers often so easily derail students in ways that are so tragic. So we see that if a student, first of all, can get into the door, because some students don't see the opportunity to get into the door, but if they do, whether that door be online or in person, if they do, if they aren't connected and plugged in meaningful ways, it is so easy to get lost. It is
Hmm.
so easy to fall out. And that's why we see so many students or former students have some college no degree in debt, which is just the worst case scenario for students as well and their families.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, something that I've also observed, and you know, higher education has been a little bit under fire ever since the
Right.
pandemic in particular.
Yeah.
And I've been in higher education institutions early in my career. I've led in career development centers, and now I'm on a
Yeah.
corporate side, and I do
Yeah.
a lot of recruitment and talent development on a corporate side. So I
Yeah.
personally have viewed this gap that exists, right?
Yes.
And it seems that also there's a huge focus on the gap on career readiness piece,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so if you can speak to that and kind of what are some things that you guys are doing that is around helping students actually land on their feet after they leave your institution. And with that being said, because you are tailored towards a specific audience, specific profile, are there certain challenges that you see that maybe traditional four-year institutions do not, or maybe you just have different challenges in your kind of profile of a student?
Yeah. The topic's so important, Elaine. I really appreciate you asking the question because I mean, there's so much, so many different challenges higher education are facing right now that this piece I feel like is an important conversation that sometimes gets lost in some of the other challenges that higher educations are facing. So for the University of Mount St. Vincent, again, by the mission, by the development of the institution, has really been committed to the development of a student holistically. And so for a moment, I'm going to focus kind of on the traditional undergraduate student. And so when we say holistic development, we look at not just what does the student want to study, we look at how is the student spending their time in the classroom and beyond the classroom. What are the network supports that they have that they they don't have the option of opting out? How are we making sure that experiences are embedded into either the curriculum or into the kind of outside of the classroom experience for students, whether they live on campus or whether they don't live on campus? Because about a little more than half of our students live on our campus as well. So we've got a rich kind of campus life as an experience too. So we look at our holistic experience for students. And what's so fascinating to me, and I alluded to this before, is that with the focus on work, from my perspective, the piece that is missing is that the conversation has really kind of narrowed in on what are the specific jobs or what are the specific skills that often don't acknowledge what employers are asking for. So, yes, I train students at the University of Mount St. Vincent to be nurses. That's wonderful. There's a clear job at the end of that degree that our students, when graduating and passing their NCLEX test, and they'll have a job, they'll have sign-on bonuses, they'll have loan repayment, they'll have all those wonderful things. And they'll be excellent nurses because not only did they have good, strong nursing education courses, but they also had courses that taught them to critically think, that taught them to communicate effectively, that taught them to think analytically. And when institutions or the public in the conversation about career readiness only focus on specific jobs or degree pathways that have a very specific job at the end of that degree, what's missing is that employers say to me all the time, I need people who can communicate effectively, both in written and verbal form. Well, that's lots of different majors. I need people who can work in teams. Well, great. I can teach that in lots of different programs. And what I think often higher education doesn't do a great job about or with is they, let's say we have an English major. English majors sometimes get the hard rap right now, and that who would major in English because there's no degree or no career after that. But it's the conversation that they're having in their major courses about the skills, the transferable skills, the knowledge, and the ways in which those skills and knowledge transfer to lots of different kinds of jobs, and what kinds of internships are you doing while you're an English major to make sure that you can say, not only do I have these knowledge, skills, abilities, and readiness, but these are the ways that I've applied those skills. So at the University of Mount St. Vincent, when a traditional undergraduate student comes in, they not only get a faculty advisor, they get a professional advisor as well in what we call our Oxley Integrated Advising Center. So they have two individuals who are walking with them through their career path at the University of Mount St. Vincent, their educational path leading to a career path, asking them to think about not only what classes are you selecting? Great, that's a great question to ask a student, but also asking about what is your end goal? What are you doing to get to that end goal? What if that end goal changes? And what are you doing to make sure that you're not prepared just for your first job, but for the multiple careers you are likely to have? What are you doing to prepare yourself to be ready to learn? How are you communicating to a potential internship or a potential employer of these are the things that I bring to the table, and I have assessed what you employer are asking for, and this is why I'm a good fit for the things that you're doing. And so we really intentionally designed our program such that it's more than just a faculty member who has expertise in a discipline who can say, great, you want to major in psychology, these are the jobs in psychology, or these are the graduate schools you should look at. They also have someone who is practically walking with them as well, helping them with some of the navigating of higher education, because there's all kinds of jargon that we give that often, again, is confusing to students in their path and journey. And so we have those professional advisors helping them navigate that, but also helping them with their career readiness, with their resume building, with their LinkedIn profile, with their application for internships. And that happens so on both the academic side and the professional integrated advising side. The other thing that we've done within the time that I've been at the university is we've established what's called a Center for Leadership for students. And it's not housed with any particular major or within any particular department or school. It's available to all of our undergraduate students, whereby they can take some coursework on leadership development. They can have the access to incredible speakers who come in through the Center for Leadership. They can join a National Society for Leadership that allows them to, again, have further educational experiences outside of their courses to make sure that they build their network and they take advantage of the network we build for them so that they have access to career readiness in a way that's not just about that first job, but about how am I considering what's next, whatever is next for them.
One of my other kind of criticisms over the years of higher education is this notion of if we take a business school, for example, right, and there's many others. a lot of the things, at least a lot of the things I've seen is not you, but the institutions in
Yeah.
general, they'll have a very academic theory-based approach to
Mm,
business
hmm.
and how business is done,
Yep.
or the world of startup. And having been in both and having a small business now, and then also having done the startup world and understanding what it's like to raise funds and what does it actually take and the
Yeah.
resilience and the mindset it takes, my criticism has always been, it's great to have that academia and theory and so on,
Yes.
but it's not a real business. Like that's not how
Yeah.
you learn. Like that's not what it is. So I'm curious, in terms of how you work with external partners. Like you mentioned, you bring in speakers in the center of leadership, for
Yes.
example. But what are some other ways you're looking to kind of, it's a gap essentially. So
Yes.
close that gap.
Yeah, no, again, a great question. And I would say that that's a fair critique, not just of business, is a fair critique of many disciplines that we tend to focus too much on theory and not enough on application. I would say at the University of Mount St. Vincent broadly, it's yes and. Yes, we need to talk about theory and understand why things are the way they are. And we need to be able to talk about how do you apply those things across all disciplines. And I would pick on psychology as well, because my background is psychology.
Hmm.
For business, so great question. A few different things that we're doing at the University of Mount St. Vincent. And we've had a business program for years, both at the undergraduate level, and we offer an MBA, and we also offer a Master's of Science and Management as well, and some different varieties within those two programs. And for years, what we've done practically is said, yes, theory is important, and every business student has to do an internship. And so you can't walk away from the University of Mount St. Vincent without having practical placement of those theories that you're learning. But that's still not enough, because you can learn the theory and then compartmentalize that and then go do an internship and not necessarily think about those translations from one to the other, unless you have a great internship supervisor who's saying, connect it for me, please. Let's make sure that you're seeing those connections. We've just, within this past academic year, more formally moved from a business department to a school of business, and hired a new business dean recently. And he brings a background that is both from industry and higher education, which was really important hire for me in the context of wanting to have someone who, like you, has lived on both sides. And although it's early days, we're giving him a runway to get established. But one of the things he and I have talked about is that our business academic program needs to include much more case study application of understanding rather than just simply reading of research and theory. And so in the classroom, students need to have that absolute hands-on kind of thought experience that is an applied way. And for our students, I would say it's true for all students, and good business schools use that model,
Hmm.
and we have the opportunity to use that model. And the other thing I would say is that and he's working on this, and there's room for, again, continued expansion, is that what I have seen at other schools is like a school of business will live in isolation to the rest of the institution.
Hmm.
And that's tragic for the students. And so what I've said to the dean and with the provost as well is I want him to think about what are the ways in which those students are integrating into the experiences of, again, curricular, extracurricular, and so forth, the Center for Leadership, with our career services office, with our professional advisors, with our community partners, to really think about what does it mean to be a student of the School of Business at the University of Mount St. Vincent. For us, what makes them different is not just the approach to the curriculum, but the mission values of the university that are applied in really meaningful ways, so that they can talk about what does it mean to value our common humanity? What does it mean to value human dignity as a future business leader? And how do we use the Center for Leadership to connect those students to individuals such as yourself to say, all right, great that you could talk about it. Tell me what that means. Tell
Hmm.
me the practical applications for that. Tell me the ways in which you're going to put that on your resume, and tell me the ways you're going to use AI, because like you need to be talking about that in addition to the knowledge you bring to the situation as well. One of the other things since I've arrived at the university as well that has been really important to me is to make those community connections. So I am on the board of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, and to me, it's important for not only our small and large businesses in the community to know that our university is here. We've got excellent students who are looking for not only internship opportunities, but career opportunities. But we also need community partners to help shape what the educational experience at the university is. So if I have local regional businesses saying, I need people who have this kind of expertise, I'm saying to my provost and faculty, what are we doing to respond to what the field is calling for? And so I think it really is a function of there's got to be a partnership, because otherwise institutions of higher education will continue to be frustrated and employers are going to be frustrated because there's not that conversation that I think, again, you've seen both sides of it, that has to happen. Absolutely has to happen.
And since you mentioned the kind of the agility and speed of making certain things happen, like pivoting, right? I'm reading this book. I'm almost done with it. It's called Death of Despair, and it talks about. Have you heard of it?
I have not. I'm going to write it down and read it.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting because I'll give you a little context. So although I have a master's degree, I've started my PhD. I probably finished my PhD at some point. It's just more on my bucket list. I love the research aspect,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
But I've been a critic of, do people actually need 4-year degrees, and what does it actually give? Because I've been on both sides and I've seen the pros and cons. And this book, Death of Despair, brings up interesting argument for higher education. It's not about higher education. It's more about the fact that they're speaking specifically around men that are 45 to 54 years old that die of death of despair from alcohol, suicide, or drug overdose abuse, and so on. And one of the biggest factors of many of these men that die from death of despair do not have a bachelor's degree.
Yep.
Because it obviously limits opportunities, growth, starting a family, economically, all like education, all of those things. So I've started to, even before this book, to kind of understand, okay, there is a social aspect to education. There is we're ticking the box that you need in order to work in certain areas.
Yes.
But on the flip side, I also see the speed of technology and AI because I'm in a tech and etc. And I'm a little bit nervous for higher education over the next
Me too.
years.
Me too.
So with that being said, I mean, what are some things you're thinking about? And you're like, okay, wait a minute. What if 2 years from now, you're like, you know what, that English major or that business degree no longer applicable?
Yes.
Like, how do you pivot, I guess, or what are some things you're thinking about as a leader in this position?
Yeah, so I absolutely wrote down the title. I'm going to pick it up and read it because fascinating, and I'm also a big fan of looking at kind of the psychological, sociological impact of higher education. And often employers will say to me, like, "Do you really need a degree?" And we're seeing in particular states, and we're having this conversation at the national level of how do we shape the job postings to reduce or eliminate the need for a bachelor's degree as well. And there are places where that's already happening, where they're listing postings without the need for bachelor's degrees. What's so interesting, though, is the research still suggesting that even when they say that the bachelor's degree is not required, when you look at their hiring practices, they're still hiring people with bachelor's degrees. And so it's a little bit of a false advertising that's happening. And the research suggests, just as you pointed out, and I think this book is affirming, there are quality of life aspects of having a degree. And the research simply puts, I mean, still today, and this may change, and I am absolutely on board with you in that I have no idea how AI and technology is going to change this in the near and far future. But still today, you are better off financially, socially, emotionally, by having a degree than not. And so all indications, so people can say whatever they want to say, that there's not a value of a degree, you don't need a degree, but the research suggests that's not true. And people with degrees, I mean, before you mention this book, I had read just this past early fall an article that talked about the not only quality of life, but longevity. People live longer. And it's, of course, a confounded experience. There's so many other factors that contribute to it, but empirically, people live longer when they have a bachelor's degree. So what do you do? Really, quite honestly, I think it's the quality of the degree that you have. not necessarily where you get your degree, because some
Hmm.
people say that, well, it's only a degree only has value if it comes from an Ivy. I
Hmm.
am case in point. My bachelor's degree is from Emporia State University, and I'm guessing none of you know where that is. By the way, it's in Kansas, Emporia, Kansas. And I'm also guessing that none of you would know why that school has value because it's not a brand name institution.
Hmm.
And look where I'm at today. And so I think the quality of the experience, all of those things that we just talked about in the context of mentoring and enriched experiences in the classroom, beyond the classroom, career connections, all of those things can happen at lots of different institutions. Now, if you graduated from Harvard, you're going to get a job, you're going to have but it's because you have so many other things that are in support that that name gives you access to. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've had as enriched experience as a student from the University of Mount St. Vincent. And
Hmm.
so I think we need to talk about like what is the quality of the degree that you're earning rather than just is a degree worth it. Now, from the context of AI and technology, like you and I both wish we knew what this is going to do. I do think it's radically going to upset the cart of the ecosystem of education as a whole, not just higher education. It's going to upset the cart of K-12. It's going to upset the community college space. It's going to upset undergraduate, graduate, and so forth. The thing that I often say to my colleagues at other institutions is, all right, so I understand you've had enrollment challenges. I understand you've had deficits in your finances, and I understand that you are looking for ways to increase the success of your institution at small colleges. We're seeing this at large colleges now too. And so many of those institutions have decided to cut programs, positions, and so forth associated with low enrolled numbers. I understand that. So, first on the chopping block are often the humanities. So, those programs that could be so incredibly enriching and critical for a conversation about AI. So, how do you critically think about the use of AI? How do you be a really good AI prompt writer? How do you analyze the data that's given to you, whether it's written or numeric or theoretical data given to you that by AI? And if you've cut all of those programs from your institution, yes, you might be able to teach your students how to do AI. Great, you've got a computer science program, you've got a data analytics program, you've got big data programs to do that kind of the practical part of AI. But who's teaching you how to ethically think about the use of AI? Who's teaching you about the global implications of AI? And so when I think about the future, I feel I'm the eternal optimist grounded in reality. I'm not worried about the University of Mount St. Vincent students. I'm not worried about the University of Mount St. Vincent in the context of this conversation. We're not the ones developing AI. And that's not a space that I'm trying to get into. But we'll be the ones when employers say, great, I know that I need to hire somebody to know to use AI, but I need somebody that I can trust, somebody who understands the implications, somebody who can review what we're putting together, somebody who can edit, somebody who can really engage with, who can critically think about, and come to the University of Mount St. Vincent for those future employees, because I think we will fill some of that space as others are trying to worry about their bottom line in a way
Mm.
that may be devastating to their institution.
Mm. Something you mentioned earlier about the kind of quality of education, I tend to agree with that. And I speak to a lot of students, obviously, from all the Ivy League schools and the big schools
Yes,
and so on. And I talk to students from all different schools, right? And also students
yes,
who didn't go to college. And having done
yes,
hiring and firing and so on, I can tell you it's becoming less important in an employer's eyes, unless they're going for very specific, like Wall
right.
Street and,
Of course.
McKinsey's of this world. But for, SMEs, which are 85% of the market, I think,
Hmm.
this small,
Yep,
medium-sized businesses, right? I think it matters less because what really matters is that holistic understanding and
yes.
that holistic education. That's what it sounds like you guys are
Yeah.
doing at University of Mount St. Vincent. And also what I see is that there's this privileged, I don't know
Hmm.
what's the word, mindset that if you graduate
Yes,
from University X, you should expect X, Y, and Z. And that
yes,
is not
yes,
true. And that's when
yes.
reality hits. But I
Yes.
also see the benefit of students who are first generation students, like 50% of you are, because they
Yes.
have a different level of resilience. They have a different
Oh,
level of
absolutely.
gratitude. They have a different
Hmm.
level of gratitude for the opportunity that they
Yes.
have, which makes
Yes.
them a little bit more hustle mode, a little bit more
Yes.
hardworking,
I would agree.
might I say.
Yeah,
And
I would agree.
it's a different approach to work, and it's a different approach to just progressing and growing and etc. So I think there's a lot of benefit there, and I agree with you in
Yeah.
terms of that quality and what you actually walk away with.
Yeah. And I would agree. So very well said. Absolutely. So very well said. And I would say too that I often talk about how our students understand that, especially as first generation college students, true for all of our University of Mount St. Vincent students, of course, but for those first generation students, they understand their degree is not just for themselves. It's for their family. It's for the future generations that are going to follow them. It's for their community. It is for so many others. And the hustle mindset, you are spot on. These students understand that they themselves, their family by blood or by choice, are making sacrifices for
Mm-hmm.
them to be there. Now, the one thing that I would say that obviously Ivies, but I will say even non-Ivies have as an advantage that we work really hard at the University of Mount St. Vincent to help fill the gap with is that those students, as they graduate from those larger named institutions, they have a network that they can call upon. So even if they've had maybe not as enriched experience as my students might have had, they can call uncle, cousin, aunt, so and so, or family friend and say, I'm looking for my first job. Can you help me get it? And many of my students, not all of them, but many of my students don't have that same kind of network. And so it is our responsibility as an institution of higher education, as the University of Mount St. Vincent, to help build that network for our students. So that's why the Center for Leadership is essential. That's why career education is essential. That's why community partnerships are essential. That's why a different kind of school of business is essential,
Mm-hmm.
that we have a responsibility. And to those employers and individuals who become connected with our institution, I say, if you've lost hope in the world, spend 5 minutes with our students. You will find hope in the world because they see the opportunity of what could be. And it's beautiful when I see those community partners, employers come forward and say, what a gift to be a part of something that is going to be so impactful for those students. I should say too, again, will a 4-year degree forever be what is the ticket? I don't know. I don't know. And that's part of the reason why we launched Seton College, where students who might not go to college otherwise have at least an entry point with an associate degree program. And we're doing this associate degree program very differently. We're not trying to compete with community colleges. Community colleges have a very important place in the ecosystem of higher education. What we're trying to do, though, is for students who aren't going to college, who don't have the financial resources to go to college, have a place where they can have dedicated faculty, dedicated staff and administrators, dedicated social work, community health support, dedicated career education support for them to remove the barriers that often easily get in the way that can completely derail a student from a first degree. We've
Mm-hmm.
also required, as a part of that development of the program, for students to complete a certificate, a Coursera certificate. That way, if they decide that they want to not continue on with a 4-year degree, that they would have their associate degree and a professional certificate that gives them something to talk about with a potential employer. So they'd say, I completed an associate degree, I have a kind of concentration emphasis in business, and I have a certificate in project management. And
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you how I've applied that to my workforce experiences or my internship experience as a way to give them something to talk about that gets them into the door to have some experiences. So I'm not saying that we know forever what that degree or no degree is. The one thing I will also say too with can those certificates replace the need for any kind of a degree, those non-credit bearing certificates? Short answer is who knows. The longer answer is maybe temporarily, but at some point when they no longer need coders, like all these people who got coding certificates,
Mm-hmm.
what's next? And
Right.
so like they're going to need to do some upskilling, some additional education. So I don't think those kinds of experiences are bad. I think there's great places for them, but it's not the end. And I would say the same is true of a bachelor's degree. Part of what I hope we do here at the University of Mount St. Vincent is teach students how to be curious, teach
Hmm.
students how to know when they need to upskill, teach students how to return to learn, whether it be formal education or not formal education.
Yeah, I think it's a solid kind of thought of just we don't know, but then you just
Right.
but I think creating I go back to that holistic like creating
Yes.
thinkers versus
Yes.
students who are just kind of following specific things, but actually helping them critically think. I think that is a value of itself. And coders, I mean, I'm in the tech sector, and I can tell you,
Yes.
coders, there's now low code, no code, and even
Right.
that's like you can basically, I mean, there's just tools you can use. You don't need to be a coder, which
Absolutely.
is really sad because software developers used to be like the thing, and
The
now it's
thing. Yep.
it doesn't. It's sadly you're not the thing anymore.
Exactly,
So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And so they have to, I mean, those are moments of existential crisis. What's next?
yeah.
And I feel like those people who have had other kind of educational experiences are prepared to say, I'll figure it out. Or I'll call upon my mentors, or I'll call upon those people I've connected with to kind of look to what's next as well.
Mm-hmm. Last question I have for you is if you had a magic wand, let's say you have
Ooh,
a magic wand right now.
yes.
What does Dr. Burns foresee for University of Mount St. Vincent? What would you make happen? You have all the funds in the world,
Oh,
all the
geez.
support. You have a
Wow.
magic wand.
Wow. Oh, so many things. We don't have enough time to talk about all the things. I would
Top
say
top
first,
two.
I would say first and foremost, quite honestly, at the University of Mount St. Vincent, we do prioritize accessibility and affordability. And I would say affordability in the context of what is manageable for a student and their family to invest to seek a degree. And so we are very generous with our institutional aid. Annually, we give over $40 million of institutional aid, in addition to what students are getting for state and federal grants. And some students do take loans. Like, I don't want to suggest loans are a bad thing. I think that's a controversial topic. I think they're a good investment as well. If I had a magic wand, I would be able to give more institutional aid to our learners because I know that even though we're very generous, I know that there are families who send their students to the university who have multiple children, college age adults, who may have to make difficult decisions about, does my first child get to go, second one doesn't, or does the third one maybe only get a couple of years? Because so I would take care of that. I would absolutely take care of that. And I would do it in such a way that asks those students to understand that because the institution is invested in them, I'm not asking them to invest back in the institution. I'm asking them to invest in themselves and invest in how they're going to pay it forward outside of the institution. And so that commitment to addressing the social and economic injustices in this world. So I would do that, wave that wand. The other thing I would wave a wand about for the University of Mount St. Vincent is we have such a rich, diverse community of learners. And I often find that people learn about us because of like like everything else, like so many things, a word of mouth. And when I came from Iowa, never had I heard from about the University of Mount St. Vincent. It was really quite honestly by chance that I had learned about the university. And I often talk about how we so beautifully see our students, whether they're Seton College students, undergraduate students, graduate students, working adults who's trying to change a career or change their lives. We see them for the person they are. And what makes me sad sometimes is when people don't see the University of Mount St. Vincent for the work that we do. And so, if I could wave a wand, I would help raise the consciousness of the
Mm,
good work we do because we have such incredible programs. We didn't even talk about how we've committed as an institution to fund for students who have persevered through foster care or homelessness. We provide tuition, room, board, fees,
mm,
insurance, books. We have scholarship programs that are so life altering because
mm.
we know that it is worth the value of that human being to see what they are able to do to invest in their goodness, to give them those kinds of opportunities. And so anytime somebody says to me, I've never heard of your institution, why haven't I? And my response is, why haven't you? Because
Hmm.
we're doing incredible work, and I'd love for more people to know about it. And so your listeners can look us up, umsv.edu, and to know of the good, incredible work that we're doing. And that's part of the reason why our enrollments continue to grow. Our finances are very solid. People are looking for us to be the partner with their employer or future opportunities because they see the strength and the value of what we do.
Well, yes, I see you, and my audience is going to see you. And
Wonderful.
no, I really appreciate the work you're doing. I think it is so important, especially for for the students that are, those that don't even have a place to stay. Sometimes to be able to
Yes.
provide them the
Yep.
opportunities is just, I mean, not it's just it's priceless essentially.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
that's that should be the aim of a society, right? Is to lift everybody up,
Absolutely.
maybe more institutions need to think about that as well. So.
Yeah, I
Um,
totally agree.
yeah. Dr. Burns, thank you so much for being here.
It has been such a gift to have the time with you, Elena. Thank you for the work that you're doing because it's making a difference not only in the individuals' lives, it's a collective impact that you're making. So thank you for the invitation.